Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Chef and Read. Today I'll be doing a video that I have not done ever, and that is to talk about all the books that I DNF'd. So before I get started, if you are new to this channel, please don't hesitate to subscribe down below as well as hit the notification bell. But I decided to do this video because I recently did a video where I just talk about all the books that I read so far in 2022. I'll link that above and down below in case you want to check that out. But in lieu of that, I thought it would be also kind of fun to talk about the books I have DNF'd so far in the year, because I really don't talk about books I DNF'd ever. Like, even in my stats, I briefly talk about how many books I DNF'd, but I don't think I've ever discussed in detail, or kind of in detail, all the books I actually DNF'd. So that's essentially what today's video is going to be about. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about what each book is about, but I'll kind of go into maybe a sentence or two about why I decided to DNF these books. So the first book that I DNF'd of the year is Circle of Shadows. This book was primarily because, one, I listened to an audiobook, and this is at the point in time where I did not yet realize that audiobooks and fantasies, we just don't get along together at all. Not only that, but I felt like the writing itself was very juvenile, because I feel like there is a spectrum for YA books. There are YA books that are just more mature in their writing. I feel like that the characters are more mature too. Everything just seems older, and I feel like I'm at that point where I appreciate those type of books versus YA books that read like they're for, you know, 13-14-year-olds versus ones that might be more geared towards college students, etc. So I felt like the writing for this one was more geared towards someone who's like 13 or 14, just a little bit on the younger age for me. And so with those two combined, I was just like, this is not really the book for me, and I kind of just lost interest, lost focus, and decided to just DNF the book. Next book I DNF is Hunted by the Sky. This is yet another book. Actually, the next few books are all books that are fantasy, and we just don't get along with audiobooks, and I had tried to listen to all of these via audio, and it just didn't work out. This is definitely one of them. I just couldn't, like, right from the bat, I couldn't get into it. I think I tried up to a certain point, and then I just lost interest, so I decided to just DNF this book. This one, honestly, I think if I had picked up physically, I might have actually enjoyed it. So who knows, maybe I will give it a try again. If you have read this book and really enjoyed it, please let me know down below, because I don't know, I feel like I'm very skeptical about trying a book again once I've decided to DNF it. But sometimes it changes a world of difference between audiobook versus physical. Next book is The Last Bus to Everland. This is another one where I actually got to pretty far. I think I got to like halfway of the book, and then I was just like, this is just not interesting at all. I didn't care about the characters, I didn't care about the plot. I felt like it was a little bit confusing as well, and so I decided to DNF it. Plus it was fantasy and it was audiobook, so you know. And the next book after that is A Bird and a Blade. This is another one I feel like I had such high hopes going into it, but I think between the somewhat mediocre reviews, if I remember correctly, that I saw on Goodreads, and the fact that it was a fantasy and I just couldn't get into it from the beginning, I just lost interest completely and DNF'd this. Honestly, I really need to stop reading fantasies because the next two are also fantasy. The first one is Bring Me Their Hearts. This is one that sounded so fascinating in writing and like in theory, and in reality it was not the book for me. First of all, it's fantasy. Second of all, I felt like the magic and the characters just seemed very, I don't know, like immature to me, and so I just didn't really want to continue on with the story. After that one, I DNF'd Beware the Night. This sounded super fascinating, but I think I just lost interest. This is also an audiobook. I tend to DNF audiobooks. I think that's the trend, just because either the genre or the characters or the writing. The next one after that is not a fantasy, and that's Wife After Wife. This sounded really fascinating, something to do with like a modern retelling of like King Henry VIII or whatever, the one that beheaded all his wives. And so this was supposed to be like a modern version of it, where I think there's a guy like super famous, I want to say, and there's a girl, this woman who becomes his most recent wife, and kind of like things that happened. I don't know, I felt like I started it, and for me these type of books go by like that. They're really fast to read, I get super sucked in, but that was not the case at all. I felt disconnected with the characters like right off the bat. disconnected with the plot as well. I just did not give a shit, so I just decided to DNF it really early on actually, which I was so shocked because it sounded super fascinating, but that was not the case. Next one I DNF is Blood Red Road. This was a dystopian sci-fi, and usually I'm pretty good with that on audio, but for some reason I just didn't really care for it. I felt like there was a lot of potential for the story, but ultimately when I was listening to an audiobook, I just didn't really care much for it and just decided to DNF it. So the next two were rom-coms, which I am very shocked by because they're usually really fast books for me to read. I actually tried to read this during my magical readathon vlog, so I'll link that above and down below, you can check that out. But these two books honestly were not great. The first one is I Kissed a Girl, and the second one is Once Upon a Sunset. Both of them, like I said, were rom-coms. This supposed to be like cute, romancy. I was in there for a good time, and did not pan out the way I expected, especially as an audiobook, because I usually finish them really freaking quickly. But it's like something to do with the narrator sometimes. It's a combination of the narrator, the story, the characters, the writing, or sometimes even the genre, especially their fantasy. And if they don't mesh well with me, then I just lose interest really quickly. And it doesn't matter if I get to a certain point, there's a good chance that I will still DNF it unless I've gotten to a point where things actually start to get interesting. But that never really happened for any of these books. And the last and final book that I DNF this year, which makes book number 12, is Within These Wicked Walls. Honestly, I was really surprised because this book sounded so freaking good. It's basically an Ethiopian retelling of Jane Eyre, and I don't know, it just sounded really cool, but for the execution, I don't think it really lived up to my expectations. So anyways, these are the 12 books that I DNF this year. It's really not a lot, so I'm really happy about that. But anyways, let me know below if you have read any of these books before, and if you have, should I give them a second try? Like, what do you guys think about them? But as always, if you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up. It really does help out my channel. And if you want to see more content of me, please don't hesitate to subscribe down below, as well as hit the notification bell. And as always, I'm going to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.